Chapter: The Lord's Hall. The journey back to Broken Heart was silent, the air thick with the weight of victory and the burden of what was to come. The battle against the slavers had been fierce, but it was only a piece of the puzzle. Horace, as always, was thinking several moves ahead. As they crossed the threshold of Broken Heart's gates, Horace turned to Brian, his tone resolute. "The next step is crucial," he said, his voice low and commanding. "You've fought bravely, but it's not enough. You need more than just raw power. You need the training and discipline of a knight." Brian raised an eyebrow. "Knight training? 3 days? What can that do for me?" His skepticism was clear. He'd seen enough battlefields to know that real strength came from experience, not from classroom drills. Horace's gaze hardened. "The Lord's Hall isn't like any ordinary training ground. It's a magical place. In 3 days, it will make you into the knight you need to be. Your body, your mind, your tactics, everything will be reshaped. You'll gain the skills and insights of generations of knights in the span of those 3 days." Brian took a moment to absorb the weight of Horace's words. The idea seemed almost impossible, but he had seen the magic of Broken Heart's fortress before. If anyone could turn a soldier into a knight in such a short time, it was this place. 3 days, Brian muttered, a mix of disbelief and determination in his voice. "Fine, I'll do it." Horace's expression softened slightly, though the gravity of the situation remained. "This is more than just about strength, Brian. You need to understand strategy, leadership, and honor. You'll need to lead more than just men in battle. You'll need to lead an army one day." Brian nodded, knowing the truth in Horace's words. He had always fought with a purpose, but becoming a true leader who could command not just strength, but the respect of those around him would require more than he had learned on the battlefield. As Brian made his way to the Lord's Hall, the massive stone structure stood before him like a sentinel, its towering spires reaching up to the heavens. The hall itself seemed to pulse with energy, the ancient wards glowing faintly in the fading light of the day. Brian could feel the power in the air as he approached, a hum of magic that seemed to ripple through his very bones. Beside him, Tolwene walked with his usual quiet focus. The mercenary's eyes never stopped scanning the surroundings, his instincts alert as ever. Though his attention was divided between Brian and the task at hand, Tolyen couldn't help but speak up. "I want to grant you a contract," Brian said suddenly, his tone serious. Tolyen's gaze flickered toward him. "A contract?" he asked, a quirk of amusement tugging at the corners of his lips. Brian met his eyes with a steady look. "A contract of loyalty. I know you fought beside Horace, but I want you to swear yourself to me understand my vision, my path. I need you with me, not just as a mercenary, but as someone who stands by me in more than just battle." Tolyen's expression softened, his smile disappearing into something more earnest. "I'm your man, Brian," he said without hesitation. "I'll follow you. You have my loyalty. My skill's everything I have." Brian nodded, his gaze firm. "Good. Then you'll be in the Lord's Hall with me. It's time we both took the next step." Tolyen nodded, but his expression darkened slightly as he glanced back at the horizon. "But," he added, his voice low and urgent, "we're not finished yet. Track the slavers. While you're inside, I'll make sure they don't regroup. We're not letting them slip away." Brian's eyes narrowed. "Agreed. The slavers won't have a chance to recover. I'll make sure we're ready to strike again once this training is over." As they approached the massive doors of the Lord's Hall, the two men shared a moment of silent understanding. There was no time to waste. The war against the slavers was far from over, and they both knew that the next steps would require everything they had. With a final nod, Brian turned to face the entrance. The doors of the hall were massive, etched with intricate symbols of power and ancient knowledge. As they swung open, a rush of cool air greeted them, and Brian could feel the hum of magic inside. The very air seemed to vibrate with the promise of transformation. Inside, the Lord's Hall But now, Brian would be ready to lead with the discipline and wisdom of a true knight. Toluin, ever vigilant, would keep an eye on the slavers, and together they would see the war to its end.